I've been going to the same local farmer's market for 4 years, and for 4 years the same man always had the biggest, fullest crates of fruit at the whole market. One day I walked over and asked how many trees he had. He said 7. I had 11 at the time. So I asked when he pruned. He pulled out a beat-up notebook, opened it, and pointed at a single word underlined twice. That word wasn't March, it was April. I'm Waldo, and if you have fruit trees in your yard that aren't giving you what they should, what I'm about to explain today completely changes the logic of pruning. Subscribe and hit the bell. This channel is built exactly for people like you. When you talk to traditional gardeners, most of them tell you the same thing. Fruit tree pruning is a winter job. That idea makes sense on the surface. In winter, the tree is dormant, no risk of cutting producing branches. It all sounds logical. But there's something that theory doesn't tell you. In January, when the tree is in deep dormancy, it interprets pruning cuts as an attack. When it wakes up in spring, it responds by firing off vigorous vegetative shoots. More wood, more interior shade, less energy for fruit. In April, the sap is already flowing strong. The cambium, the cell layer responsible for healing, is at its peak activity of the entire year. Wounds close at a speed that January can't touch. And there's something else that changes everything. In April, the tree is showing you exactly where its energy is going. The flowers, the fruit setting, the new growth. When you prune in January, you're pruning blind. When you prune in April, you're pruning with your eyes wide open. Let's go through all 7 trees. If you're finding value in this, hit the like button. Let's get into it. Tree 1, apple. By April, your apple tree already has its first tiny fruitlets forming, about the size of a pea. What you're seeing changes completely how you should use your pruners. Something home gardening books almost never explain is the concept of thinning integrated into April pruning. Apple trees produce clusters of 5 to 7 flowers per point, called a corymb. If they all set fruit, you end up with a cluster of small apples crammed together competing for the same resources. Small, flavorless fruit that can snap the branch under its own weight. Professional orchardists know this. When the fruitlets reach about ½ an inch, they thin down to 1 per cluster. The biggest, the best position toward light. You can do this in April. In January, it's impossible because the flower clusters don't exist yet. But April pruning on the apple isn't just fruit thinning. You also remove water sprouts, those completely vertical, vigorous shoots that spring from main branches pointing straight at the sky. They won't produce fruit this year or next. They just steal energy and create shade. In April, you spot them instantly because they're completely green and tender. Cut them flush, no stub. Check the interior of the canopy. Remove crossing branches and anything pointing toward the center. In January, many weren't obvious. In April, with the foliage opening up, interior congestion becomes visible instantly. The difference between an apple tree giving you 15 pounds a year and one giving you 65 isn't fertilizer or watering. It's conscious management of where the tree's energy goes. Tree 2, pear. The pear benefits most from April attention for a reason involving a devastating disease most gardeners don't know about until it's too late. Fire blight, caused by the bacterium Erwinia amylivora, multiplies with alarming speed in spring, when temperatures hit 65 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit with humidity. It enters through open flowers and any fresh wound, then advances inside the branches toward the trunk, burning the vascular tissue. An affected branch bends at the tip, forming a shepherd's crook that looks scorched. If you see that on your pear, the bacteria is already inside. Why am I telling you this while talking about April pruning? Because by April, pear blossoms have passed in most USDA zones and transmission risk drops. But here's what matters most. When working on the pear, you need to disinfect your blade between every single cut. Not between trees, between cuts. A solution of 10% bleach or 70% rubbing alcohol with a rag in hand. If the bacteria is on one branch and you cut without disinfecting, the next cut carries it to another part of the tree or the one next door. This sounds extreme until you lose a mature 8-year-old pear in the middle of July. Beyond the sanitary precaution, the work is identifying and protecting the spurs, those small, compact protrusions on branches that accumulate flower buds year after year. They're the pear's treasure. Remove everything blocking their light. subscribe right now, because the next 5 trees include the one mistake that ruins more harvests than anything else. Tree 3, Peach. Here, the difference between pruning in February and pruning in April is more dramatic, and not in February's favor. The peach has a chronic fungal disease in humid climates called peach leaf curl, caused by Taphrina deformans, the fungus that makes leaves appear deformed, wrinkled, with pink and green blotches. Its key characteristic is that it infects primarily during cold, wet periods of late winter, between February and early March. Pruning wounds during that period are direct entry points. In April, with stable temperatures above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the fungus's activity drops drastically. Wounds have much lower infection risk. But there's something else that makes April unique for the peach. In April, its fruit is already visible. You can see with your own eyes which branches have small peaches setting and which are completely empty. In January, you had to guess. The technique combines 2 jobs. First, renewal pruning. You remove the oldest branches with dark, rough bark that no longer produce, and keep the young branches from the previous year that are now showing fruit. Second, fruit thinning. A tree with 40 peaches spread across all branches gives you 40 mediocre peaches. A tree where in April you leave 15 peaches well spaced, about 6 to 8 inches apart, gives you 15 peaches you won't forget for months. The quality of the fruit your neighbor eats in July isn't luck or tree genetics. It's a decision someone made in April with pruners in hand. Seal all cuts on the peach, no exceptions. Tree 4, Plum. By April, the plum is fully dressed in leaves. It finished flowering weeks before most other fruit trees and is in full vegetative growth mode. You can see something that was invisible in winter, the proportion of the canopy that's in shade. First job is water sprouts. The plum produces them with an abundance that has no rival among backyard fruit trees. They come from the trunk base, from the ground through the roots, and as vertical shoots from main branches. In April, you cut them while still tender, making a cleaner cut. Cut exactly flush, no stub, because if you leave even half an inch of base, they resprout with double the force. Second, check crossing branches and those pointing inward. With leaves open, you'll see which zones are in permanent shade. Branches that don't receive direct light don't produce quality fruit. Remove them. Critical detail with special importance in April. Immediate sealing of all cuts. The plum is sensitive to silver leaf disease, caused by Chondrosterium purpureum, which enters precisely through pruning wounds. Finish a cut, apply the paste, move to the next. Tree 5, Cherry. In April, the cherry is in one of the most delicate moments of its year. It may have its last flowers, or already small green fruit beginning to form. What you must not do is any aggressive structural pruning. The cherry has already invested enormous energy in flowering and initial fruit set. A heavy structural cut right now can cause massive drop of the small set fruit. What you should do is precise, selective pinching. Cherries produce very vigorous vegetative shoots in spring. You can pinch or cut the longest ones right now while they're tender, so the tree redirects that energy toward the fruit already set. The cut is so small, it causes no significant stress. The second thing you must do in April with the cherry is apply a preventive copper treatment after flowering. Monolinea, the cherry's main fungal problem, infects right during bloom and shows up weeks later with fruit rotting on the tree before ripening. A copper spray when flowers have fallen and small fruit are still green is the difference between a full harvest and the frustration of watching cherries rot on the branch in July. Tree 6, Pomegranate. This is where the logic of April is too late breaks down completely. The pomegranate is a subtropical tree whose cycle runs so far behind the rest that in March, when the apple is already in bloom, the pomegranate still looks dead. Gray branches with zero visible sign of life. Working on it in March is operating blind. In April, the pomegranate begins showing its first buds with an intense reddish, almost coral color that makes the tree seem to glow from inside. When you see that color, you know it's ready. First, remove all sprouts and suckers growing from the base and from the ground. The pomegranate produces them with extraordinary generosity. Leave them one season and you have an unmanageable bush. Cut at ground level, no base. Second, Open the tree outward. Airy canopy where every branch gets direct sun and the pomegranates have room to develop without crowding. Honest warning. The first year after a well-done April prune, production may dip slightly. The tree is rebuilding its architecture. The second year, what you see is so different, it looks like a different tree. Tree 7. Fig. The fig shares the pomegranate's late awakening. While other fruit trees have been active for weeks, the fig in April has barely opened its first leaves. The fig produces 2 crops per year. The first, Breba figs, grows on last year's wood and ripens in June. The second, main crop figs, grows on current year's shoots and ripens in late summer and fall. This dual nature makes pruning complex in January, because you can't see anything. In April, the brevas are already visible, small, unmistakable swellings on last year's branches. You can look at each branch and know exactly which has brevas and which doesn't. Do a surgical thinning prune. Remove dead or damaged branches, crossing branches creating congestion, and vigorous vertical shoots with no production prospect. Control height by cutting leaders that are climbing too high, always leaving a lateral fork as the continuation point. 2 things you cannot forget. First, the white latex the fig bleeds when cut irritates skin and can be aggressive with eyes. Gloves and safety glasses, no exceptions. Second, dried figs from last year still hanging on branches are reservoirs for fungi and insects. Before any other work, remove them all. Takes 10 minutes and can save your harvest. Think of a fruit tree's energy like water in a reservoir. 3 channels run from that reservoir. 1 for growth, 1 for maintenance, 1 for reproduction. An unpruned tree always does the same thing. Opens the first 2 channels to maximum and leaves the third with a trickle. From an evolutionary standpoint, a tree that grows big and lives long has more chances of reproducing over time. Trees have been perfecting that strategy for millions of years. They're not going to change it for you unless you actively redirect the flow. Your job as a gardener is to partially close the first channel, so the third gets more pressure. That's pruning. And when you understand it that way, you understand why timing and precision matter so much. April pruning has a complement that turns results from good to extraordinary. Summer pruning. In August, first 2 weeks, when new shoots have reached their full length, you come back with the pruners. Shorten main shoots to about 6 inches, secondaries to 3 inches, tertiaries to 1 inch. The tree can no longer respond by growing more because the season is ending, so it does the only thing it can. It transforms those buds into fruiting structures that next spring will flower and become fruit. April pruning gives the tree efficient structure. August pruning forces the tree to convert that structure into production. Together, applied consistently for 3 or 4 years, they transform a mediocre tree into a serious one. An unpruned apple tree might give you 15 to 20 pounds per year. The same tree with this system can give you 55 to 75 pounds. Gather your tools. Sharp, disinfected pruners, handsaw for thick branches, wound sealant, gloves and safety glasses for the fig, rubbing alcohol or bleach solution for the pear, and get to work. The buds opening right now on your trees are the signal. When you walk out tomorrow morning and see the first coral buds on the pomegranate, or the small peaches the size of a marble, or the clusters of tiny apples competing with each other, you'll know exactly what to do. If this changed how you see your fruit trees, subscribe and hit that like button. We're rescuing the knowledge that turns backyard trees into serious producers. Share this with someone whose trees need help. Tell us in the comments which tree you're starting with. See you in the next video.